is my recap of Couples Therapy. This is Season 5, Episode 2, Death Trap. We didn't get a lot of progress this episode. We got to the end of it and I went, it's over already? Which is good because most of the shows I watch feel like they last a lifetime. Let's get right into it. Tretch and Evil Dick are complaining to each other. We pick up right where we left off with, right after Trench and Cicely's fight. Anyway, we go into our first process group. We talk about challenging moments in their relationships with Cicely and Trench. It's about trust and unfair fighting. Juan and Nikki, they talk about the fact that he's okay with being attacked. He kind of rolls off his back. It does not happen that way with Nikki. It really bothers her, along with, you know, when people come up to them in public, which I understand. I'm sort of like, I kind of get her point, but it's part of being a celebrity, so I'm kind of like neutral on that. Dina and Chris talk about her anxiety disorder. Totally relate, girl. I am right there with you. So it was actually kind of difficult to watch because I could so relate to what she was going through. And then, of course, his big struggle was, how do you help someone? You can't talk someone out of anxiety. You can definitely make it worse, but you can make it a little bit better, but you can't fix it for someone else. And then Dick and Stephanie, obviously, the breakup, and then she kind of brings up, she's 41, she's talking about having kids. And I feel for her because 41, that might not be an option. I mean, sometimes it's not an option for you regardless of your age. That's just the facts. 41, though, you got a lot of things working against you. 35 is when you become an older mother. Sorry, it's a fly. Anyway, he kind of blew off her feelings and he gets called out. And it really is like the Dr. Jen show. They call it Couples Therapy with Dr. Jen. And we are very heavy on Dr. Jen. But whatever, that's the way the show is. We meet Jenna and John. Jenna Jameson. I don't really know her. Sorry, I'm going to be fully honest. I'm not really familiar with her. But I've seen her before. I've seen her around. I'm pretty into pop culture. And she's almost unrecognizable. That's all I'll say about that. John's a good looking dude. And he seems pretty smart and pretty communicative. Like, he seems... Well, we'll get to this more when we get to their big fight. Let's see. We have a one-on-one with Trench and Cicely about how it's kind of built on lies. Their relationship started with him with another woman. She didn't quite know the extent that the woman was pregnant. But that makes her justifiably nervous that he's doing the same to her. She's already thinking in the future about, well, when they break up, what new women is he going to get involved with, because his exes won't let him see his kids, and there's a lot of unhealthy stuff going on with that. Basically, she threatens to take his kids if they break up. I was kind of surprised. Jenna is less free love than I expected. I guess it's just wrong of me to assume that she would be like, oh yeah, it's totally normal. But she has a problem with kind of the Bachelor, like the whole enterprise. Juan Pablo seems really hated in the house. I didn't watch The Bachelor, so I don't really dislike him from that. I'm not crazy about him, but it seems like everybody in the house really dislikes him already. So there must be more going on off camera, because she already really dislikes him. Jenna is really aggressive in her behaviors. He makes a reference to like her strong personality, and I would describe it more as aggressive personality, like she's really aggressive in her confrontations. They have a problem with their bathroom, which I'm with you, girl, like that is unacceptable. Dr. Jen comes in. Okay, I didn't agree with how she handled it. She came in and she immediately kind of was like, yeah, the bathroom's unacceptable, but could this be about therapy? And I kind of felt like, deal with the bathroom because it's a legitimate problem, get it fixed, and then later on maybe address like, how is therapy going? Because I mean, I kind of understood Jenna's frustration, which is like, I'm legitimately mad about something and you're trying to divert it into something else. But Jenna like comes back way aggressive. I was gonna say crazy, but I felt like that was too harsh of a connotation. But she's like, oh, isn't that sweet? And like super condescending. And John's like in the background, like they've only been together for 3 months. So he's like embarrassed and he's kind of cringing. And afterwards she's like, well, I handled it right. And he's like, well, you were kind of condescending. And then she totally flips out and she's like, you think I'm condescending? Maybe you should look that up in a dictionary. And I was like, ooh, talk about like not proving your point. Anyway, her behavior was baffling. I don't want to throw out like, oh, she must be high, like in some flippant way, but I genuinely was like, is something altering her behavior? Because it seems so weird. Anyway, and John seems pretty level through the whole thing. I was kind of surprised he was with her, but, you know, sometimes that happens. And said some pretty smart stuff. And I was like, oh, this guy's pretty good catch. So there you go. So that's the end of the episode. It went. She did say she was worth like, she's made like $36 million, and I was like, if she has $36 million, why is she doing this show? Like, she could, with that amount of money, she could easily fund her own reality show. She could do whatever she wanted. So I'm kind of a little bit like, I don't know if that. I googled her, but you know, who knows when you come up. They said she's worth like $10 million, so I don't know. Anyway, what got me really hot and bothered was our preview for next week. I'm gonna dress it now. I'll probably dress it next week, which is when Nikki comes through during Pablo's like one-on-one interviews. She's like, you know, are you going to be here for effing, you know, 3 hours? And the producer says, oh, I'm sorry, that's me. And she's like, well, then you better effing wrap it up too or something. I got a real issue with that. If you don't know this, I've mentioned it repeatedly before. I was a producer and a host and co-owner of a reality show, Knockout, N-O-C-K. You can search for it on episode 1 on YouTube. You can find it. It's half an hour long. There's a pilot, and there's also an episode 1. Make sure you watch episode 1. Anyway, no, that's no longer, but I have a full season, and let me tell you, that totally happened. So I had the honor and joy of working with 10 amazing contestants. They all kind of at various points, I should say all of them, most of them at some point had like, you know, they didn't feel like being there, they complained or something, but they were amazing people, and I was super lucky to work with all 10 of them. Unfortunately, there's 12 contestants total, which means that I totally saw behavior like this and worse. So I have a real issue when you go on a show and that is your job to do the show and then you complain about doing your job. I got a real problem with it. You know, the producers, everyone there, the camera people, everyone's there to do their job. And then the contestants are in front of the camera. That is their job. They're, you know, usually paid a day rate, all that. And then they complain about doing their job and treat people like crap. And that's just unacceptable to me. So big old touchstone for me, and Nikki's kind of on my list now, despite the fact that we share a name. Anyway, couples therapy. I'm really enjoying the show.